What?
No, 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 don't do that!
A YouTuber just made one of the best horror movies of the last decade and nobody's talking about it. I recently learned that the director of this movie is a YouTuber, and that makes so much sense now. The movie reminded me of the late night shift horror games where you play as a cashier and are alone and experiencing freaky shit at night. Similar to the games, there's very little outside influence like police or a demon hunter, and it's purely the horror revolving around a few characters at most. This made me feel so isolated, like you're wedged behind a freezer and no one can hear you screaming. The main character Bear, who by the way is a villain in his own right, chooses to deal with his crush Nikki alone when she splits personalities and becomes an obsessive nightmare. Just like in the games, Bear goes back to his job daily, even with all the weird shit going on, like Nikki using 50 layers of tape to seal the front door shut. Strange, right? Me, I just pack my bags and run.
I'm out of here.
Let me talk about Bear for a second. This is where I applaud Cory Barker for his cojones. He wasn't afraid to cut off the audience. Usually in a typical James Wan horror movie, the audience can hide behind the main character. This age-old structure has been used more times than a dirty rag. It sympathizes with a brain-dead audience who want to avoid being alone in that moment and cheer on the hero running from whatever entity that's behind them. But Cory Barker said,
"Oh hell no! That's hell no! Whoa!"
Bear decided that while his crush has been piloted by another worldly demon lady, it's his lucky time. Bear, as much as I didn't want to believe his friends, really was taking advantage of Nikki. He openly says something like, "We'll try to make this work." Huh? Excuse me? Bro is really out here hugging and kissing on a supernatural hostage. Who raised him? Anyways, this made me give less of a fuck about what happened to him and I started to root for his downfall. James Wan, in my opinion, is one of the most washed up names in the horror industry. Bro needs to retire because every single movie he works on feels the same. Massive production costs, fantastic sets, great cast, but where's the horror? Is it in the room with us? I mean seriously, he tries to pivot off these loud ass jump scares and I sit there unfazed. I don't even leave my house at night, so it really isn't that hard to spook me, but James Wan decided that nah, we need loud screams and a strange looking demon shot. Maybe this is harsh, but I feel like whilst he had initial successes, his boring formulaic repetition really made the horror industry slide down a hill for the past decade, as stakeholders would hound other directors to copy him. Like I was watching Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and whilst they had flashes of brilliance, for example the use of head-turning gore when the mum pulled her daughter's toenail out, but the skin on the shin peeled off too. Disgusting! Or the gut-wrenching torture footage, which really made me uneasy. The movie fell off when the random sandstorm emanated from the girl's bedroom. It was like a slap to my face, because they had built something really different and it deserved to go in its own direction. But nah, this is where James Wan's signature chairs flying, wind machine blowing, force slamming bodies Haratan had to come in, and it just sucked. Sorry James Wan, you had your time, but it's time to go.
It's time to go!
Cory Barker did an amazing job of letting us sit there in the uncomfortable silence. Even in his interview he said how him and Indy would do all sorts of weird movements in front of the film crew because they had to feel comfortable to be cringy. That's not an easy thing to do, and the hard work really paid off. I rarely feel second-hand embarrassment, but the scene where Nikki stands up and says,
What?
No, 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 don't do that!
made me crawl back down my seat and check over my shoulders. I felt like I was in that restaurant with them and everyone had their eyes on me too. I rarely praise actors because good acting is their job, right?
It's his job, isn't it? That's his job to make saves. When I hear people saying someone's a good shot stopper or a goalkeeper, is that not what you're supposed to do?
But we need to give a standing ovation to Indy. She carried this movie on her back, and without her range of facial expressions and willingness to be awkward, this movie would have been mid at best. Because imagine the movie flopped. People all over the internet would be making memes of her, and her career might not have had the same trajectory that it now will. But she really pulled it off, and kudos to her. Some scenes we couldn't even see her face and had to rely on her voice to paint the picture, but even here she excelled. It is such a tricky thing to do, to creep out an entire audience only with your voice, but she pulled it off, and I really think we might be seeing a future star of Hollywood in her. Remember, not once did she turn into a demonic entity, and she rarely used violence to scare us. Her command of her body, face and voice was insane to watch, and even her making a creepy sad face weirded me the fuck out. I really wish we got a deeper look into the supernatural elements of the story. Like I said, not once did we see the entity that possessed Nikki, and I really need to know. Who picked up the phone when Bear rang the One Wish Willow telephone number? Was it Satan? On the phone call we could hear Nikki screaming, and I'd love to look inside into the alternate reality she was trapped in. I feel like movies in general don't do this enough and we're really missing out. For example, in the video game Deceit 2, there is a dark realm called the In-Between, where innocent characters try to survive whilst being hunted by the monster, but on steroids. It would be cool to see this in horror movies going forward. Also, if only Bear got in contact with one of the people who claimed the One Wish Willow really worked when he was glossing over fake Reddit. Which, by the way, was a really cool touch, I thought, because that's what I'd do if I was in this situation. But if we had another experience to learn from about the One Wish Willow, it would have really opened this entire world up. And I think world building is crucial early on to allow a successful franchise. Honestly, I thought we had to wait until summer for the really good movies to release, but I was so wrong. Obsession has taken me by surprise and definitely is the best movie out this year. I have a sneaky feeling that the Odyssey might flop, so we should cherish this masterpiece while it's fresh in our minds. If you haven't seen it yet,